Hi Reddit. I'm using a throwaway because some of our friends use this account and I don't want this traced back. I, 34, have been married to my wife Emily, 32F, for almost 7 years. She is smart, beautiful, outgoing, and has always been ambitious about her career in consulting. I supported her through everything: late-night proposals, exhausting flights, last-minute trips. But for the last 6 months, something has changed. She started going on consulting retreats every 3 to 4 weeks. At first, I didn't think much of it. Her industry is competitive. But then she started turning off her location, keeping her phone on airplane mode and acting distant. I'd come home to cold dinners, unread messages, and excuses. Last month, I found a receipt in her coat pocket for a fancy rooftop restaurant in Miami. The date on the receipt, the exact weekend she said she was in Denver. I didn't confront her right away. Instead, I played along. Told her I had work trips too, just to see how she'd react. Her reaction she barely noticed. Didn't he ask where I was staying? Didn't even ask if I made it back safely. That was when I knew something was going on. So I made a decision I'm not proud of. I followed her. I told her I was going on a retreat myself. Booked a flight on the same day. She said she was leaving for Seattle. I watched her leave our house, suitcase in hand. But instead of going to the airport, she drove to a suburb an hour away and pulled into the driveway of a luxury house I'd never seen before. I parked 2 houses down. Sat in my car. Waited. She didn't come out for 6 hours. When she finally did, she looked happy. Relaxed. Wearing a different outfit. She got back in her car and headed straight to the airport. Checked in for her trip. She had built an entire cover story for this. But here's where it gets worse. That house, the one she went to, I ran the address through property records. It belongs to my brother Dot. After I saw the property record and realized the house belonged to my brother, my stomach dropped. I thought, no way he wouldn't. My brother Kyle, 36 meters, and I haven't always been close, but we were tight growing up. He helped me through some dark times. I was the best man at his wedding. Divorced now, we had each other as backs. Or so, I thought. I didn't sleep that night. I kept replaying it in my head. Emily walking into his house. Staying there for 6 hours, looking happy. What could possibly explain this? The next morning I texted Emily, pretending like everything was normal. Hope the retreat is going well. Love you. She sent a selfie at the hotel bar, cocktail in hand. The problem I knew from the timestamp and weather in the photo. It had been taken days before. She was faking her location. I didn't say anything. Instead, I went to see Kyle. I showed up at his house without warning. I expected awkwardness, maybe guilt. But when he opened the door, he looked genuinely surprised, not nervous, not defensive. I asked if he'd seen Emily recently. He said not in months. Lie, I looked him in the eyes. You sure about that? He nodded, confused. Offered me a beer. Said he was working on some home renovations. Here is where it gets weird. I glanced around and noticed a set of keys on the counter with a pink keychain, the one I gave Emily on our 3rd anniversary. It had her initials on it. Still, I didn't confront him. I thanked him for the drink, made up a story about needing to leave, and walked out. I needed proof. So I did something I never thought I would do. I installed a camera in my own home office, the one Emily never used. It faces the living room, angled just right to catch the hallway and front door. The next weekend, when she said she had a client dinner, I waited until she left, then checked the feed remotely. 3 hours later, Emily came home. Not alone. She wasn't here with Kyle. She was with a woman. When I saw Emily walk into the house with a woman, my first reaction was confusion. This wasn't here what I expected. The woman looked around Emily. Maybe mid-30s. Stylish. Confident. They were laughing like old friends. No signs of nerves. No secrecy. I watched on the hidden cam as they kicked off their shoes, opened a bottle of wine from our kitchen like it was their place, and sat down on our couch. Then came the part that made my heart stop. They kissed. Not a friendly peck. Not an experimental kiss. A full, slow, intimate kiss. And Emily was the one who leaned in first. I felt like I was watching my own life shatter in 10 ADP. For a second, I questioned myself. Was she hiding that she was bisexual all along? Had she fallen out of love with me and into something new? Or was this an affair like any other, just with more layers? What threw me completely was what the other woman said. I boosted the mic audio as best I could. She said, "You sure he has no idea?" And Emily laughed. "Babe, he still thinks I'm in Seattle." Babe. That word hit me like a punch to the chest. So it wasn't he knew this had been going on. The two of them sat there, drank wine, and talked casually about me. About my predictability. About how he never asks questions. About how they were almost done with the plan. The plan? What plan? They didn't say more that night. Emily left again an hour later, probably heading back to her retreat. The other woman stayed for a while, walked around the house like she knew it intimately. She even opened our bedroom door. I was shaking. This wasn't he just cheating. This felt like something else. And the worst part, I knew I recognized the other woman's ass face. But I couldn't he place it yet. I couldn't he sleep. The image of Emily kissing that woman haunted me. But even more than that, her face did. I kept thinking, where have I seen her before? At 3 a.m., it hit me. I jumped out of bed, opened my laptop, and dug through my old photo backups. I went to a folder I hadn't touched in years. From before Emily and I got married, back when I was still dating someone else. Her name was Claire. Yes, that Claire. My ex-fiancée, the one who left me 6 weeks before our wedding. No explanation, just a note saying, "I'm not ready to marry someone who doesn't he really know himself." I never recovered from that. I was a wreck for months. It wasn't he just the heartbreak, it was the confusion, the betrayal. One day we were planning a honeymoon, the next she was gone, and now that was the woman I saw on my couch with my wife. Claire and Emily knew each other. Not just now. Then suddenly I started seeing it all differently. Emily and I started dating about 8 months after Claire disappeared. She was charming, funny, almost too perfect. And now I realize she already knew everything about me. My favorite food, my habits, my flaws, because Claire told her that wasn't a coincidence. This wasn't some accidental love story. This was something else. Something planned. And when I looked deeper, I found more. I opened my email inbox and searched Claire. Nothing from recent years, but in the archive section, I found an email I missed back then. It was an old thread between Claire and someone with a Gmail address I didn't recognize. But one reply in the chain said, "Let me handle it." He never see it coming. And it was signed E. My blood ran cold. Emily had been in my life before I ever met her. Watching. Studying. Why and what exactly was she handling? After I realized Claire and Emily knew each other, before I ever met Emily, I spiraled. I didn't want to believe it. I needed proof. So I went back through everything: texts, old photos, social media, anything I could find. Emily had always been careful, but Claire not so much. I found an old Instagram post from Claire, dated almost 10 years ago. She was tagged at a house party in LA in the background. Blurry, but definitely recognizable, was Emily with her arm around Claire, laughing, holding a drink. They were close, like sisters or something more. And the caption, nothing better than revenge and tequila. That's when I knew this wasn't just about me. It was about something else. So I did what I never thought I'd do. I confronted my mother. See, there is one more piece I haven't told you yet. Claire's father used to work for my father. Years ago, my dad owned a mid-size investment firm. Claire's father was his top analyst. Until my dad accused him of insider trading and fired him publicly. He lost everything. His license, his savings, his reputation. My family never talked about it again. I never connected Claire's last name to that story. I didn't want to. But now I saw it all. I asked my mom, "Do you remember Claire's father?" She looked at me like she'd seen a ghost. "Why are you asking about them?" Them as in that family. And then she said something I'll never forget. That man swore he'd get even. He said he'd destroy our family from the inside. And then Claire disappeared. We thought it was over. It wasn't over. It had just begun. Emily wasn't just some woman I married by chance. She was part of a plan. A long, patient, deliberate plan to infiltrate my life. To get close. To destroy me and maybe my entire family. And I still didn't know how far they'd already gone, that I couldn't live in silence anymore. I had video footage, I had old emails. I had photos. I had truth. I needed answers. Not assumptions. So I waited for Emily to come home. I sat in the kitchen, phone in my hand. Hidden cameras still running in the background. She walked in like nothing was wrong. Set her purse down. Gave me a quick kiss on the cheek. And I just looked at her. I know. I said. She froze. Know what I know about Claire. I know who she is. I know what you've been doing. I know why you're here. There was a moment, just a blink, where her face changed. Her smile dropped. Her shoulders stiffened. But then, unbelievably, she laughed. "You've been spying on me?" she asked, crossing her arms. "Seriously, you're paranoid now." I showed her the footage, the kiss, the conversation. Then I pulled up the archived email, the one she signed as E. That's when the smile really disappeared. She sat down, quiet, cold, and finally she said it. "It was never supposed to go this far." That one sentence sent my pulse into overdrive. What was never supposed to go this far? I demanded. She looked up at me, eyes full of something. Guilt maybe, or calculation. "We were only supposed to scare you. Not fall into this. What is this, Emily?" She hesitated. Then she said something I'll never forget. "You weren't the target. Your father was. You were just the doorway. I felt like the air got sucked out of the room. Emily continued slowly, carefully. Claire's dad wanted to expose your father. Claire got close to you to get access, but she couldn't handle it. She backed out, so I took over. Took over like I was a job. I could barely breathe. You married me for revenge. She looked down at first, but somewhere along the line, I started to care, and then she said it. The line that shattered me, if it helps. I really did fall in love with you. I wanted to scream, but it wasn't tea over yet. Because just before she left the room, she dropped one last bombshell. You should ask your dad what he did to Claire's father. That's the part you don't know. I didn't sleep that night. Emily's words looped through my head like static. You should ask your dad what he did to Claire's father. I thought I knew the story. My dad fired Claire's father, Gerald Whitmore, for insider trading. It ruined his career. But that was it, right? That's what I'd always been told. But Emily had no reason to lie now. Not after everything. And if she was telling the truth, then my entire life, my family, my marriage, even my memories might be built on a lie. So the next morning, I drove to my parents' house. My father was in his home office, sipping espresso like it was any other Wednesday. I didn't even say hello. I closed the door and said, "What did you really do to Gerald Whitmore?" His face barely moved, but his fingers twitched just once. "I fired him," he said flatly. "Don't do that," I snapped. "I know Claire was his daughter. I know she was with me because of you. I know about Emily. I know the entire damn operation. What I don't know is what you're hiding." Silence. And then he sighed and sat down and told me everything. Gerald, wasn't he guilty? He looked me dead in the eyes. I was caught in a bad deal. A tip came through, I acted on it. But if it got traced back to me, I would be lost the company. So I pinned it on Gerald. Made it look like he took the risk. His silence bought him nothing. He lost everything anyway. I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. You let him take the fall. It was survival, then it worked. I didn't even know what to say. My father, the man I had idolized, had sacrificed an innocent man to save himself. And I had lived my life in the glow of that illusion. And then he added, "If they're coming for me now, fine. But don't get caught in the crossfire. You were always the most useful one. Useful like I was a tool upon." Just like Emily had said, I left without another word on my way home. I called Emily. I asked her one question. Was it ever about me? She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, after my father confessed to framing Gerald Whitmore, Claire's father, everything clicked into place. Emily and Claire weren't just seeking revenge. They were executing a slow, deliberate destruction. I was just the thread that unraveled the rest of the sweater. But here's where things took a turn I didn't expect. 2 days after the confrontation with my father, I came home to find Claire sitting in my kitchen alone. No warning, no call, just there. She looked older than I remembered. Not physically, but emotionally. Like she'd been carrying something heavy for too long. "I'm not here to fight," she said calmly. "I just needed you to know the truth." My version of it, I didn't say a word. I just sat across from her and listened. Claire told me that when her father lost everything, she swore to make things right, not just for him, but for herself. She blamed my whole family. But when she got close to me all those years ago, something unexpected happened. I fell for you, she whispered. That was never the plan. That's why I left. I thought if I disappeared, I could protect you from what was coming. But Emily never left. She took the plan further than I ever wanted. Claire said, marriage, moving in, sharing your bed, it wasn't tea revenge. That was control. That was personal. And then she said something that chilled me. She is not loyal to me anymore. She is not loyal to anyone. That is when I realized Claire wasn't here to confess. She was here because Emily had cut her out. They weren't a team anymore. They were enemies. I asked her what Emily was planning. Claire hesitated, looked over her shoulder, like someone might be listening. Then she handed me a small black USB drive. This has everything. Emails, voice memos, legal documents, the truth about your father, the truth about Emily, about me, about what comes next. And before she walked out the door, she said she is going to burn everything down with or without me. You need to choose whose side you're really on. I held that USB like it was radioactive, because I knew once I plugged it in, I could never unsee what was on it. I waited until midnight. I locked my office door, turned off every smart device in the house, disconnected the Wi-Fi, and finally plugged in the USB player gave me. There were 3 folders, _Whitmore. Phase _3. I started with the underscore. Hundreds of files. Screenshots of emails. Photos. Audio recordings. Transcripts. And most of them were Emily's private correspondence with Claire, with lawyers, even with a private investigator she'd apparently hired to track me. One file stood out immediately. A recorded voice memo labeled E_November 28th. It was Emily's voice, shaky, angry. He's starting to suspect. I know he is digging. Claire's losing it. She has gone soft. I told her this isn't about love. It's about justice. If she can't handle it, I'll finish it myself. He'll never believe a word I say. Once the bomb drops. The bomb. Phase _3. I opened the second folder. Whitmore. This was documentation and damning. Scans of financial records, trading logs, memos written by my father. Proof of the setup. Claire's father was innocent. Not just probably fully. One internal email from my dad to a board member read, "We'll scapegoat Whitmore, leak the story, and preserve the firm. I'll have the PR team frame it as a heroic firing." That sentence made my vision blur. But it was the third folder, Phase _3, that truly broke me. It contained a signed affidavit, time-stamped 2 weeks ago, in which Emily claimed she had been emotionally manipulated and used by me, her husband, to hide my father's crimes. It accused me of knowing everything all along. It claimed I was helping cover up a financial conspiracy. And worse, it included doctored screenshots of messages between me and my father, carefully edited to make it seem like I was complicit. She wasn't just planning to destroy my family anymore. She was planning to destroy me. I backed away from the laptop, nauseous. Cold sweat on my neck. The woman I loved, the woman I married, was building a legal nuke with my name on it, and I had no idea when she planned to drop it. That's when my phone lit up. It was a message from an unknown number. "You shouldn't have opened the drive. and attached was a photo of me. Taken tonight through the window. I stared at the photo. It was taken from outside my home office window, maybe less than 30 minutes ago. Me sitting at my desk, looking at the USB contents. Lights on. Headphones, and hadn't he heard anything? Hadn't he seen anything? But someone had been watching that message. You shouldn't he have opened the drive? Wasn't he just a warning? It was a threat. I shut down the laptop immediately and yanked the USB, turned off the lights. I could feel eyes on me, even if I couldn't prove it. Suddenly, the scope of this entire situation snapped into focus. This wasn't just personal anymore. Not just a cheating wife. Not just a revenge plot. This was surveillance level. Coordinated. Dangerous. I had been monitored for months. Maybe years. I texted Claire. Someone else watching the house. Was that you? She replied immediately, no. Get out of there now. That was all I needed. I grabbed a backpack, stuffed it with a USB, a burner, phone charger, and a few documents I'd printed earlier. Left through the back door. Got in my car. Didn't he go home? Didn't he go to a friend's? Just drove. I ended up at a cheap roadside motel, an hour out of town. I paid cash. Used a name I haven't used since college. Only then did Claire call. Her voice was shaking. Emily's not working alone. I asked her what she meant. After I walked away, I thought she'd back off. But she didn't. She got others involved. I don't know who. Lawyers. Investigators, people who owed her favors. She has got dirt on a lot of people. She has been building leverage like it's chess. And you're her endgame. I asked her what the hell Emily wanted. Claire hesitated, then said something terrifying. She doesn't want to destroy your father anymore. She wants to replace him and me. I was just a liability. A link to the truth, a witness. A husband with too many questions and too much proof. I hung up the phone, locked the door, and pushed the dresser in front of it. Slept with one eye open. In the morning, I woke up to 3 missed calls from my dad and a voicemail from his assistant. There has been a breach at the firm. Internal systems compromised. Your father needs you now. It was always about you. That's what made it so complicated. By the time I arrived at my father's office, the damage had already begun. Half the senior partners were in a panic. Phones ringing off the hook. Legal counsel pacing the halls. One of the interns was crying. The internal system breach, not just a hack. It was a targeted leak. Coordinated. Timed and devastating. Thousands of documents had been dumped on a dark web forum, trade records, shell company transfers, burner account histories, NDA's whistleblower reports. Everything my father had buried for decades was now public. And worse, there were files implicating me. Edited versions of my email chains. Falsified audio clips of me and my father talking about burying a regulator's inquiry. Deepfakes, some of them. Others so subtly altered that even I had to check if they were real. Emily had everything ready. She didn't just want revenge. She wanted to erase us, then become us. My dad pulled me into his office, pale as paper. What the hell did you do? That was rich. What did I do? I told him everything. Emily, Claire. The USB, the surveillance. The plan. He just stared at me. Then, in a rare moment of vulnerability, He said I always knew I'd pay for what I did. I just didn't think it would be through my own son. There it was, all the guilt, all the corruption catching up at once. But there was still something I didn't understand. Why me? If Emily had what she needed to destroy my father, why set me up? Why marry me? Why dig so deep? And then I got my answer. Claire messaged me again. Just 2 words, check Nevada. I didn't get it at first. Then I remembered. My father had quietly acquired land in Nevada years ago for a future project, something he always kept hush-hush. I accessed the investment database. What I found made my stomach twist. The land was under my father's name. It was in mine. Transferred quietly years ago through legal loopholes, trusts, proxy filings, which meant that on paper, I was the one who owned the most profitable shell entity in the family portfolio. That was the real goal. Emily didn't just want to ruin my father. She wanted to marry into power, get close to me, make me unknowingly carry the crown jewel of the empire. And now that the scandal had hit, she was preparing to take it. As my wife, she had legal standing. And if I didn't fight her, or if I got arrested based on those forged files, she'd inherit control. It was a long con. A revenge plot evolved into a hostile takeover. And she was already 2 steps ahead. When I realized the Nevada property, the most valuable asset in our family's portfolio, was in my name, everything locked into place. Emily didn't just marry me for revenge. She married me to inherit me. And now that the scandal had shattered my father's reputation, I was set to become the public face of the collapse. The son who knew the co-conspirator. Convenient. Clean, disposable. But she miscalculated something. I wasn't broken yet. I spent the next 48 hours off-grid. No phone, no email. No contact with anyone but Claire, the only person who still had something to lose from Emily's rise. Claire met me in a parking garage, classic spy movie style. She handed me a second USB drive, one she'd kept secret from Emily. This one has her secrets, Claire said. Everything she didn't want me to see. Inside were call logs, offshore account numbers, encrypted files labeled with initials I didn't recognize, but one folder stood out: Phoenix. I opened it. It contained a full timeline of Emily's movements, going back 7 years, even before we met. Flights, hotel stays, earner purchases, legal contacts. The most damning part, a scanned copy of a prenup agreement forged with my signature, dated a year before we were even engaged, and a drafted divorce filing, time-stamped 6 months ago. She had always planned to leave me, but only after she got what she came for. Only after my father's empire collapsed. Only after the Nevada transfer became official and untouchable. But here's what she didn't know. I still had one card left to play. Before any of this happened, before I even suspected Emily, my father made me co-signer, an emergency executor of his offshore trust. It was a dusty legal form buried in our family safe. Useless on its own, unless I used it to transfer everything out of Nevada and into a separate private entity, one that no one had access to. Not my father, not Emily, and I did just that. Quietly, with the help of an old family lawyer who owed me a favor now. Emily was publicly holding nothing but smoke. But I wasn't done. The next morning, I walked into our house where she was waiting, calm as ever, coffee in hand. "Welcome home," she said. I sat across from her, looked her in the eyes, told her everything I knew. Didn't he flinch? Didn't he deny it? Just smiled. You're smarter than I gave you credit for, she said. But you're still not fast enough. And then she slid a manila envelope across the table. Inside a restraining order based on emotional abuse. Digital stalking and covert recording filed. Signed. In process. She was going to paint me as the monster. Unless I moved faster, and thank God I already had. Because an hour later, the FBI showed up not for me. For her when the FBI agents entered the house. Emily, didn't he scream? Didn't he cry? She didn't even ask why. She just smirked like she'd even expecting it. They had a warrant for her devices, her financial records, and all communications, linked to the Nevada holding company. At first, I thought I had triggered this by moving the assets and exposing the forgery. But I was wrong. The feds weren't just after Emily. They were also tracking a larger conspiracy, one that stretched beyond her. Beyond me, beyond even my father, and what they found on her encrypted drives. It was a bombshell. Emily, hadn't he just been collecting blackmail on my family? She had files on multiple corporate executives, 3 politicians, and at least 2 judges. Detailed records of bribes, favors surveillance footage, even secret recordings made in hotel rooms across several cities. One folder was labeled simply insurance. It was her leverage plan, her way out in case anything ever went wrong. She never planned to disappear quietly. She planned to negotiate her freedom. But her biggest mistake, she kept records of every step, including a video recording from over a year ago of her sitting in front of her laptop, talking to someone we couldn't identify. And in it, she said, once this falls apart, I'll offer them with more S-tapes. The son has no use now, but if I need to burn him, I will. I married a target, not a partner. I watched that video in silence as an agent played it back for me in a side room, and it hit me harder than anything yet. I was never a human being to her. Not even in the beginning. Just a move on a board. Just a bridge between 2 kingdoms she wanted to conquer. But it gets worse. Because 2 days after her arrest, Claire went missing. Her phone dead. Her apartment cleaned out. No note. No message. No sign of struggle. She vanished like smoke. And suddenly, I had to ask myself, was Emily working alone after all? Or was someone above her pulling strings from the beginning? Because as I went through the last files on Emily's laptop, I found a folder marked Phase 4 Contingency. And inside was my name, not just in documents, but in a death certificate template dated next month. I stared at the death certificate template, dated next month with my full name, social security number, and a listed cause of death, accidental overdose. I don't drink. I don't do drugs. This wasn't a hypothetical. This was a plan. I dug deeper into the Phase 4 Contingency folder. Hidden in a subfolder marked Hades were blueprints, financial documents, contracts, surveillance photos of me in various cities over the past 2 years. Some ID never even visited with Emily. And then I found the final file. A letter scanned. Dated almost 5 years ago. Addressed to Emily from my father. If things ever spiral and you must cut ties, ensure the boy goes quietly. You'll be compensated as agreed. You were always better at cleaning messes than Claire. I dropped the laptop. My father. My own father had orchestrated this long before I ever suspected anything. He knew who Emily was. He hired her not to protect the family, but to protect himself. Claire was the original weapon. But when she failed, when she grew attached, he brought in Emily to finish the job. And when Emily got too deep, he planned to eliminate both of us. Everything Emily had done, marrying me, gaining access, manipulating Claire, it was all part of a larger plan crafted by the man who raised me. I was never the pawn of a scorned lover. I was the sacrificial son in a billionaire-esque chess game. I confronted him the next day. Stormed into his gated estate, laptop in hand. He was sitting by the fireplace, drinking his usual morning espresso, as if the world wasn't falling apart outside. "You sent her," I said. Didn't he deny it? Didn't he blink? "You were weak," he said. "Claire tried to save you. She failed." Emily was insurance. I told him I'd expose everything. The files, the recordings, the fake certificate, the death plan. He just nodded. "And if you do, you will bring down the entire family. Name your name. You'll never recover, and neither will she. She, Emily." And that's when it hit me. He still controlled her, even from behind a wall of scandal and federal investigation. He was her lifeline, her only way out, and mind Claire if she was still alive. Because now I was stuck between two monsters, a wife who married me to bury me, and a father who gave her the shovel dot after everything, the lies, the surveillance, the forged documents, the planned murder. I knew one thing. Couldn't he go to the police? Couldn't he trust the courts? Couldn't he even trust my own name? But I could trust the truth. And I could trust the internet. I made a decision. I leaked everything. Not to the feds, not to the press, to you. Reddit, every file, every video, every voice memo, every photograph I uploaded. It all distributed across burner accounts, drives, even a blockchain mirror, a digital dead man switch. I posted a full timeline with evidence dates, backup links, and an affidavit from Claire 1. She secretly sent me before disappearing. And then I waited. The fallout was immediate. My father was arrested within 48 hours. The new leaks exposed decades of tax fraud, bribery, and even connections to international shell corporations. Emily, already in custody, was denied bail after investigators found her Phase 4 plans and offshore accounts tied to 2 unalived witnesses. And then the biggest shock of all, Claire resurfaced alive, safe under witness protection. She staged her disappearance the moment she realized Emily was preparing to have her eliminated too. She contacted a federal whistleblower agency through a backdoor channel she once helped Emily build. She came forward with a final puzzle piece, a signed confession Emily once drunkenly recorded, naming my father as the architect of everything. That was the end. The empire collapsed. The company was dissolved, accounts frozen, properties seized, names erased from plaques, charities, foundations, and me. I disappeared too, changed my name, sold the Nevada property to fund a quiet life somewhere warm, far away from marble floors and $1,000 suits. Sometimes I still wake up sweating, thinking I'm being watched. But mostly I sleep. I breathe. I survived a conspiracy so deep it started before I even met my wife, before I even understood who my father really was. I was the target. I was the bait. I was the bloodline meant to be sacrificed. but I flipped the board and I walked away. Not a king, not a pawn, just a man who finally learned how to play the game.